So the last time we met, we converted our adventure game into a Space Invaders style game, which I've been calling Asteroids, but was corrected. And what we did was we got our player moving up and down on the side, shooting at the enemy, which is now coming from the side. We also created hearts that came from the side instead of randomly spawning. And various things like that. And we said that this time we would do two things. One, we would have the enemies split in half. The big ones would split in half each time they're hit until you kill them. And we would set difficulty levels using a timer. So let's go do that now. The first thing I'm going to do is go to my hippo. And I'm going to set up yet another when flag is clicked. And I'm going to go find my timer that's in sensing. And that just automatically starts. And I'm going to create an if statement. Or actually, I'm going to do a wait until statement. And I want an operator, so I can say wait until my timer is greater than something. So wait until my timer is greater than 50 right now. Probably for testing, we'll do something like 10. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a variable. I'm going to create a new variable called difficulty. And I want it to be for all sprites so that my heart can make use of it too. And so I'm going to set difficulty to 1. And I also want to make sure that when my flag is clicked, I set my difficulty to 0. And then I'm going to repeat this twice. Duplicate. Oh, actually, I'm not going to do it like that. I'm sorry. I'm going to not set my difficulty equal to 1. I'm going to set my difficulty equal to... yeah, so I was thinking of having it be difficulty plus 1 so we could have this be on an infinite loop. But that's going to be hard with my set time with the timer. So I'm going to create another variable. And have that. Oh no, that's perfect. Never mind. So I was going to create another variable that counted our loops, but we can just use our difficulty variable for that. So I'm going to create a forever loop. And I'm going to set my difficulty equal to, as I just said, difficulty plus 1. So I need an operator. And I need my variable difficulty plus 1. Okay. And then I'm going to wait until my timer is greater than 10 times my difficulty level. That way, every 10 seconds, we'll go up 1 difficulty level. So we start with 0, which means that we wait till our timer is greater than 10 times 0, which is 0. That means this will happen straight away. And then we're going to increase our difficulty by 1. And then we'll go around, so our difficulty will then be 1. We'll wait until the timer is greater than 10, and we'll increase our difficulty by 1, making it now 2. And so every 10 seconds, we'll increase our difficulty by 1. Again, you're probably going to want to change that 10 to something like 20 or even 30, but for testing purposes, leaving it low is worthwhile. So I'm going to go to my operators. I'm going to use my multiplication one. I'm going to duplicate this difficulty one. Oops, it popped it out. There we go. And I'm going to do difficulty times 10. And that is what we're going to use to determine how many hippopotamuses come out. So right now, we have create a clone of myself and wait 1 second, and then there will be another clone of ourselves. So we don't want to wait 1 second. First of all, we want it to be somewhat randomized. And second of all, we want it to be related to how difficult we are. So you would think that maybe we wanted to weight difficulty amount of seconds, but that's not the case, because then we'd be waiting longer each time to create the clone. So we actually want to divide by difficulty. That means that it gets faster as the number difficulty gets higher, because our wait time gets lower. It's an inverse operation. So I'm going to say that again. We're going to use an operator of divide. We are going to, right now I'll just say wait 10 seconds between hippopotamuses. We'll eventually lower that, and we're going to divide by the difficulty level. So our first hippopotamus, oh, we're going to get a divide by 0 error. I need to fix that. But our first hippopotamus will come out at 10 divided by 0, which is no good. And then when we get to difficulty level 1, it'll be 10 divided by 1. So every 10 seconds there will be a hippopotamus. And then once our difficulty gets up to level 2, it'll be 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So we'd spawn a hippopotamus every 5 seconds. Eventually, at say difficulty level 10, it'd be 10 divided by 10, which means we'd be spawning one every 1 second, which is where we started. Clearly, spawning one every 10 seconds to begin with is too slow, and we'll need to fix that. But this will work well for testing. Now, what's that divide by 0 error I discussed? It is the fact that you can't divide a number by 0. And when we start, we set our difficulty to 0. Because then we went into this forever loop for waiting until it got to 1. So we will go ahead and start our difficulty level at 1. And that's not a problem, because we'll wait till difficulty times 10 seconds. So we'll wait 10 more seconds to increase it to 2. So that is 0 problem at all. That's just to prevent this from being an error. Now we're going to hit play, and we should see that hippopotamuses don't spawn very often to begin with. It's a very easy game. We're going to fix our hearts here too in a minute. Now, eventually, see, look, our difficulty is all the way up to 2. So we should be spawning them every 5 seconds. But we are not. We're not spawning hippopotamuses at all. And they don't know why. Because we should only be waiting less than 10 seconds between sets. So let's fix this. Let's just wait 1 second again. Oh, I think I know what the problem might be. This wait until over here might be pausing things, but I don't know why it would be. So let's hit play again. And now we should be getting hippopotamuses every 1 second, and that's working. This is how you debug code. So that was fine. And then just for the purposes of debugging, I'm actually just going to wait difficulty number of seconds. So it's actually going to get easier as time goes on. So there's every 1 second we should be getting right now. Okay, and difficulty went up to 2 there, so it should be a longer wait. And it looks like it is. And it's now 3, so it should be an even longer wait, which it is. So let's go back to this 10 divided by difficulty number of seconds and hit play again. So we got the first one. Oh, now it's working. I don't know what we changed. So now we should be getting them every 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And now 10 divided by 3 is roughly 3. So that's looking realistic. Yep, this is looking better. Okay, I don't know why it failed the first time, but that just shows you that some debugging is worthwhile. We should be getting them every 2 seconds right now, and that looks realistic. Okay, great. So I'm going to stop this, and what we did looks like it works. Again, I want to play with this because I don't want it to be so fixed, but we needed to see if it was working before we did that. So I'm going to have this here be a random number that is in control, no, in operators, I believe. Yep, pick random 1 to 10. And I'm going to have it be a random number between 5 and 15. So there's going to be quite a bit of variance in how often they come out, but since we're dividing whatever number this is by the difficulty, we know it'll still pick up speed as the game goes on. So let's try that and see what it looks like. So it's nice and manageable now, which is how we want it to be. We want people to get used to the controls, find out how it works. It might be a little bit too slow right now because it's not getting faster fast enough. So I wouldn't mind having our random numbers be adjusted to maybe 5 to 10. Because this is way too easy. But before we do that, remember, we're going to have our hippopotamuses split into half every time we hit them. And so that might actually increase the difficulty in the way we want it to. So let's go do that before we adjust anything like that. So now we've got that all set up. And we want to find the one where it notices that it got hit, which isn't in here. That's with our apple. If we hit the hippo, then we're deleting it. Nope, it must be over in the hippo. Let's find it. Okay, yes, wait until touching apple. And in this case, we decreased the size. What we actually want to do is to create a second clone based on what size we currently are. And remember, we had this as a repeat twice. So we're going to have to actually change this up and give each clone its own size variable or hits variable. And so we'll go here, we'll make a new variable, and we'll call it hits. And it's going to be for this sprite only. That way, each individual clone keeps track of its own number of hits. If I had it be for all sprites, then it would be a global variable, and each time we changed it for an individual clone, we'd change it for all of them. So I'm going to get rid of this whole bit right here. And I'm going to do, when I start as clone, I need to set hits to whatever I want them to be set to. So I'm going to set them to, oh no, sorry. This is the number of hits we've gotten so far. So that wants to be 0. We can also have a max hits. And I'm going to create another variable of that for this sprite only again, so that they can start in different sizes, okay? So I want to set hits to 0. I want to set max hits, and I want that to be a random number again. So I need to go to operators, pick random, and I think we want their max hits to be between 1 and 3. I think that's a pretty good setup. You can fix that as you want. And that's going to determine what the initial starting size of the enemy is, as well as how many hits they can take before they go. So I'm going to, let's see, forever move 2 steps, that's right. This is where I set all of my X and my Y and my direction and my rotation style. but I'm going to set my size in here after I find out what our max hits are. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's see, that is looks. Change size, or set size to, no, I want to set my size to 100%, and then I want to change my size by 10, and I need an operator here. I want it to change it by 10 times the difference between this 3 here and what my actual max hits are for this guy. So 3 is the most we ever allow because it's the high number here in our variable, and the one that this guy has, which is right here, max hits. Okay, so we're going to start that so that you can see what it looks like. I don't need hits or max hits for the hippos. I do like still seeing the difficulty up here, although I'm going to move it to the other side so it doesn't obscure my hearts. So again, to restate this, when we start as a clone, we're going to set the number of hits we've already taken to 0. We're going to set the max hits to a random number between 1 and 3. That just means it can be 1, 2, or 3. We're going to set our size to 100%, and then we're going to shrink it down so that 3 is full size. So 3 minus max hits would be 0. And 10 times 0 would be 0. So we're going to, oh, I should have had that be a negative 10. We won't shrink it at all if our max hits are 3. If our max hits are 2, then we'll shrink it by 10, because 3 minus 2 is 1. And if our max hits are 1, then we'll shrink it down by 2 sizes, and our max hits will be, or our size will be our smallest size. So I'm going to hit play. We have this giant guy. And we're not shrinking them down anymore, remember, because we didn't allow for that. I am confused about why all of these guys are completely full size. Maybe it's just because 10 isn't big enough. So let's stop. I forgot that we had him shrunk down to 30. So we need to have our size set to 30 and hit play again. Now that's a size 1 guy. Let's see if our random numbers produce any other sizes. That's the problem with random numbers, is you can get a whole string of them. Yep, there we go. That's a level 2 guy. And there we have our original big size guys. So as you can see, they're coming out in different sizes. And what we're going to have is our big ones, we're going to break down when we hit them. Right now, nothing happens because we took that code away. And our little ones, they'll just immediately die. And our really big ones will split into 2 again. So this is perfect so far. Now we need to add the code that allows them to get smaller based on how big they are. We're going to do that with a wait or forever loop. Forever. Okay, and inside of that forever, we're going to wait until we touch the apple. So we need control. Wait until we're touching the apple. That way we know that we've gotten hit. At that point, we will set our variable hits to hits plus 1, which requires our operator and our variable. So we're just increasing the number of hits by 1. Now, after we do that, we are going to check to see if our hits is equal to our max hits, and if it is, we're going to delete the clone. If, and we want an equals here. Actually, we'll just use, we'll use an equals. Okay, so if hits, our variable hits, is equal to our variable max hits, then what we want to do with our control variable here is delete this clone. Okay, we also, I'm going to go ahead and when I do this, decrease the size of it, which is our looks, so that we have a good visual. Change size by 10. Okay, so now we're going to hit play. This big guy should shrink. Oh, he didn't. Because we didn't have our wait a second, so he got all of his hits in all at once. Okay, so let's pause. We need to have our control, our wait in here. Oops, I want to do that after everything else. There we go. And we're just going to wait a quarter of a second. That should be long enough so that the apple can despawn. Okay, so we got a tiny one. We should expect to see that one go away completely. And then we have a level 3 guy. Should get smaller. Oh! I need to change my size by -10. Now let's see. This guy should get smaller when we hit him. Yep. And smaller. And then one last time. Oh! I didn't get him soon enough. 1, 2. There we go. And we were able to defeat him. But that isn't what we wanted to do yet. We actually wanted to split them into 2 clones. And I've done enough right now, so we're going to save that one still for the next time. The reason is we're going to have to do a fair bit of changing to our code in order to do that. That's because I have all of these when I start as clones setup stages, and for our new pair of clones, we don't actually want to do all of the new setup because we know where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to have to put a bunch of if conditions in here so that we can carry over our hits and our max hits and all of those kinds of things. So that's going to take a little while to set up yet. But we did set it up so now they become smaller. We have a random amount of sizes and we have our difficulty. I think you can go into the hearts and change their difficulty yourself. You want them to come faster in the beginning and slower at the end, probably. Maybe you just want them to stay the way they are. That's fine too. But you'll do that using that difficulty variable. So that's all for now. Next time we will move on to actually having our enemies split in half.